Hi friends, my plant friends. Happy Wednesday to you. It is toasty, but I am in here in the in the greenhouses because tobacco told me in my dreams last night that it was ready to be harvested and I was supposed to do it in the afternoon. Because in my dreams, we were working together in the afternoon. So here I am with tobacco. I've been growing sacred tobacco this year. I actually tried last year. It did not germinate. So I tried again this year because that's what I do. Keep trying. Some seeds are really difficult, and this guy was very particular about when and how it wanted to be harvested or germinated. Just as most of our beloved medicines are very particular about when they want to be harvested. So I generally wait until they come in my dreams. I've been looking at this plant, saying, "You look really gorgeous." And then last night, this morning, really, right before I woke up, this is the dream I was having, was tobacco teaching me how to process her very deliberately, very intentionally, with the magic of the ancestors. So I was going to flip you around and we can look at this beautiful plant. So some of it's behind, but let's look at the nice big gorgeous one, because we have tobacco. It's looking really sad in the afternoon, but that's why we're going to harvest them. I guess that's what she wanted to do. So we have it here, little tinies. And these are the bigger guys here. Look at that. Isn't that just amazing? And then I have some down at the end. And then I have more big ones on this corner here next to this giant wild lettuce. Don't mind the beets on the ground. They weren't doing so well, so I said goodbye. But then we have these nice guys over here too. These nice bigger ones that are looking so great. And next to my giant wild lettuce that I have in a greenhouse, because I'm that kind of greenhouse person. We are going to harvest this plant, this tobacco, and tobacco is a Solanaceae plant, so it is a poisonous plant. It is a psychedelic plant. When it is not processed correctly, we can have problems, as you can imagine, with a psychedelic, not that psychedelics are bad, but a psychedelic poisonous Solanaceae plant can cause problems. So there's not much literature on how to process this sacred plant effectively enough for even smoking tobacco, but I'm going to trust my dreams. I'm going to trust the literature that I have found in a few of my books about the fermentation process, and we're going to go with our fermentation understanding and take some calculated risks, because I think it's worth it to have not only this plant around, but this plant being ingested in mindful ways. So I was reading a little bit last night in Pharmacopoeia, and that is a book that's so great. It's one of my favorite books because it talks all about the poisonous plants. Poisonous is a weird word. We've learned to fear that word, but when poisons are ingested appropriately, mindfully, respectfully, when they are created mindfully and respectfully, we can work with plants that are somewhat toxic, somewhat poisonous. Some would consider alcohol poison that is abused. Lots of people consider marijuana poison that can be abused. Both of these substances that are very well accepted by society can be very abused, can't they? I guess marijuana is not very well accepted yet, but it's getting there. But the medicine that comes from these plants is generally, like, when it's taken into consideration that these plants need respect, demand respect, we can get a lot of really profound messages. We can get profound healing. We can have profound balancing in our thoughts, in our actions. It's just when we, like anything, take for granted, abuse, misuse, mistreat, misinterpret, etc., etc. Like, there's all sorts of different ways. Okay, my friends, we got this beautiful, bountiful harvest of tobacco from the greenhouses, and it's a nice, off just a couple of the plants that were matured, I feel really good about this harvest. It'll give us a lot to play with. So I'm going to take it into the apothecary. Thank you for joining me as I play with the wisdom that was shared by my guides last night in my sleeping dreamland. See you in the apothecary. Hi again. Thanks for joining me in the apothecary. We are going to get to processing these gorgeous tobacco leaves in the way that my dreams told me. The spirit of tobacco told me in my dreams last night. And when the plants talk to me at night in my dreams, there is no miscommunication. We discuss things together in plain English. I'm highly clairvoyant, and they tell me when it's time to harvest. They tell me what to do, like I've been researching what to do with tobacco, how to process it in the traditional way, not in the colonized, mechanic, far away from human interaction way. I want to be processing, especially these sacred plants, in the most authentic way possible. So in my dreams last night, tobacco told me, showed me how to wrap her up, lay the leaves all nice and beautifully together within the largest leaf of the harvest. So that is what I am doing. We're laying them down and we're going to ferment them. And in one of my favorite books, Pharmacopoeia, from Dave Pendle, it's a poisonous plant book for sure, but it talks about toxins and poisons in regard to a lot of toxins and poisons that are highly socially acceptable, like tobacco, like marijuana, like alcohol, and all sorts of other ones like opium and things like this. This book is just brilliant and I love it. So I was reading last night about the tobacco and historical accounts and accounts that are still happening now. Our Western civilization, our Western society does not acknowledge the fact that indigenous cultures all over the world are still in practice, including our indigenous Turtle Islanders here on the northern continent, still in practice. They're not gone. They're still alive. So what I love about what Dale talks about in tobacco's chapter, oh man, this is grasshoppers. We are having locusts like crazy, and they're not totally in the greenhouses, but that's what that is. So, but we're still gonna honor this tobacco leaf. They are annihilating the calendula, but that's okay. Calendula can handle it. Anyway, Dale talks about how traditions, indigenous traditions, all over the world in all four directions, all of the sacred directions, there are native tobacco species. We have them here, they have them in Africa. In northern continental places, there are plants that are treated as tobacco and are species of tobacco. It is a sacred plant to the shamans all across the globe. which I find to be just gorgeous. These plants are what unite us. Nature is what unites us all and makes us remember that we are one and we are nature. And I just find that just such a beautiful component of nature and nature-based spiritual practices. So the shamans all over the world, this is not just in one place. Tobacco is food to the spirit realm, to the ancestors, to the divine creator, to gods and goddesses of all these traditions, the food. The gods and goddesses want what we have and we want what they have. We shamans are very open and able to access divine connection through the breath. What do we do with tobacco? We smoke it. We inhale through our breath, through our lungs, our divine connection, which is innately here, through our lungs. And then upon the exhale, we connect, we give back to the spirit realm, to the universe, to our guides, to our ancestors who are guiding us. We're giving that breath, whether it's food in the form of tobacco, or whether it's love. We are love, we are divine incarnated love. And I find it really gorgeous that we are able to communicate and interact with the spirit realm in this capacity through our breath. That's why meditation is so important. But anyway, back to the shamans, who historically, not as much currently, historically were women. I'm going to get into that this month as well. The female shamans. Anywho, back to tobacco again. So the shamans of indigenous cultures now and historically, both, looked to tobacco as food for the spirit realm. The spirit realm does not have the food that we have, and neither are they nourished in the same capacity that we are nourished. They are nourished by spiritual food, spiritual alignment, spiritual connection, more grasshopper situations. The shamans, who are very good at interacting with the spirit realm through plant medicine especially, they would more or less, they do more or less, excuse my language, they do more or less offer tobacco regularly throughout the day, smoke tobacco regularly throughout the day. In the book, Dale says constantly, and I don't know from, of course, personal. I would be curious if anyone knows personally how consistently shamans now smoke tobacco, traditional tobacco, versus the machine chemicalized tobacco that we experience in stores. Very different situation. But I love that not only do all indigenous cultures who interact with tobacco across the world, all four directions, all four, interact with tobacco in the same capacity of feeding the spirit realm through our breath, through the inhale, the alchemization that happens within the human body, and then exhale, feeding the spirit realm with the food that they're after. Another good thing, tobacco loves to grow in gardens where we actually grow food. So that's why I have the tobacco in the greenhouses, surrounding the greenhouses, the perimeter, alongside calendula, because it wants to be with food, and it is a form of spirit food. So another piece that I love, and this is confirmed by one of my mentors, that indigenous Turtle Islanders, fireweed, would roll fireweed as it fermented. They love to ferment food in their traditional eating and ingesting of wild medicines and food. They roll fireweed specifically. This is what I have been told by my mentor. Roll the fireweed to ferment it. And this has been done and is done now. And what I find to be glorious is Native Turtle Islanders do this with fireweed. A friend of mine who is from Eastern Europe, the traditional Siberian heritage would roll and ferment their fireweed as well. Modern science shows us that when we ferment foods, when we ferment especially plants, these are the studies that I've seen on plants, when we ferment them, what we are doing, we're breaking the cell wall, right? We're breaking the cell wall apart. We are putting the plant into a stress response, okay? And in my dreams, tobacco wanted to be rolled up in a big, giant cigar, essentially, and fermented. So that's what we're going to do, and I love that it wanted to be put in a big roll. But, and this is a big roll, we might have to do this in half, actually. This is a lot more than I anticipated. I'm just going to divide this in half and we'll do 2 sessions. So when we are fermenting plants, we're breaking the cell wall. We're putting the plant into a survival mode of sorts, okay? So what happens, and modern science shows us this, all of the chemicals, the phytochemicals, the nutrients, the potency of the plant that is concentrating while the plant is growing throughout the season and going to seed eventually. Because when we ferment, when we roll like this, when we break the cell membrane, when we break the cell walls, we are essentially putting the plant into survival mode, okay? That's what we're doing. We're saying we're stressing it out, breaking it apart, getting those nice juices flowing, and you can see the breaking down of the cell wall happening already. That's what's happening right there. That darker stuff here on the leaf, that is the cell wall breaking apart. So when we roll, as the plants are drying, we can keep this process happening for, a number of days. Fireweed is pretty quick. It's like 3 to 4 days. The tobacco is much longer. And that nice crunch, those big, beautiful leaves. So what's happening right now is we are stressing the plant out so that it creates more phytochemicals. So what does that say in a plant like fireweed? Fireweed, full of vitamin C, full of quercetin antioxidants. Amazing body strengthening, cancer fighting, disease fighting compounds, right? As we ferment these plants, we are creating more and more of those as we ferment them. And, tobacco told me in my dreams that it wanted to be fermented. It wants to be rolled like this. It wants to be wrapped up. And I was asking, I can't find traditional sources of breaking the plant apart. Please, come to me. And tobacco did. I grew an entire flat of tobacco this year. I'm very happy about that because I've had a couple of failures in the past couple of years, but keep trying, right? Persistency. So this is how we make our plants go further, become something more powerful by using our human minds. And indigenous cultures have been doing this for centuries, and until Western society took over these cultures and annihilated them ruthlessly, they were very, very healthy humans, no disease. It was the introduction of Western society that created the diseases that we're seeing now. But before there were no disease. There was sickness. Let me be clear. I know language is powerful. But the disease was not there. The rampant running diseases. Okay? So tobacco, that's from my dreams, that is the reason tobacco wanted to be fermented. Okay? And this is going to be interesting because I saved the largest leaf for that first little pile, but we shall see how this goes. So back to my dream, just because it was funny. I was backpacking through the forest, but my greenhouses were with me, of course, because we can't find tobacco in this land, even though it's native here. And this is the native species that used to grow here wild. Anyway, so I'm backpacking and talking to tobacco, and it's telling me, you know, harvest me in the high afternoon when I'm sweating and when I'm feeling really loosey-goosey, I guess. And so I'm backpacking, and here I'm harvesting tobacco in my greenhouses, backpacking away in the woods. I think that's where my soul likes to be the most, but I realized I didn't have a bag. I didn't have a sack. Like, this is the herbalist's worst situation, I think. We forget our bags sometimes. Anyway, so I grabbed a sack, like a bottom of my backpack sack. I think my subconscious knew that I was going to find something better in the waking realm, because, come on, like, let's be nice to tobacco. So I'm going to use a flour sack. I've used cheesecloth for things like this, but a flour sack I like just because it holds the moisture in. The cheesecloth tends to have the moisture bleed out more. So we're going to roll it up in this flour sack, and we're going to keep rolling this tobacco every couple of days within the sack, within the flour sack, which is just a towel, really. It's a light towel. We're going to keep rolling it until it starts crunching. And we're going to keep rolling it because these dense, moist plants, can you see there's nice moisture? Not a ton, but there's nice moisture. We will keep the moisture, we will keep this fermentation process happening. We will keep on stressing the plant out so that we have a high concentration of phytochemicals and nutrients and the beautiful spirit food that tobacco is. So, just getting it all broken, and see how it's all disintegrating. Yeah, happens really fast. And there's lots of nice moisture in here. I'll squeeze it out. I don't know if you can hear that, but lots of nice moisture in there. And this is the magic of fermentation. And we want to keep rolling until we get that nice moisture content going. And it's going. So you can see on the counter all this juice. I'm just going to pick you up and show you. See all this juice? That's good. That's what we want to see when we're fermenting anything, even vegetables, but this tobacco. It's just getting shredded, and we're breaking those cell walls, and we are disintegrating the cell wall. We're stressing this live plant out so that we get as much out of it as we can. So I'm just going to bring the flour sack over. This big stem. Oh, I just love that. Get these all together. And I feel like this should be cleaner, like with those, but because we had to divide it in half because it was a much larger pile than I kind of anticipated. So this is a flour sack. Towel, because it's interacted with a lot of plant medicine, it's not very white, but it's clean. I promise you, tobacco, it's clean. And the tobacco, surprise, surprise, wanted to be rolled up like a giant cigar, of course. So into the flour sack it goes. Get all the little bits here. And then as I roll it, we're just going to soak up this juice with the flour sack. And of course the first layer that's touching the tobacco. So we get all of this magic happening. So again, thank you for joining me. in the apothecary as we process some spirit food. I'm really excited to play with this throughout the season, throughout the spirit season that is coming. When the veil thins, we shall be having some ceremony locally, hanging out with the spirit realm, which is something that I do very, very much all the time, but I'm really excited for fall to be closer than it was a couple weeks ago. So this will be fun. I'm gonna do another video in a couple of weeks after we've rolled this every day. I'll be rolling it every day so we keep that fermentation process going, just like I'm stirring my magical fermented herbal goodness that we're playing with as well. Lots of downloads this year. There's a lot going on in the spirit realm. If you're disconnected from it, I highly recommend right now you connect to it. Your ancestors, the ancestors, are all going to be speaking to all of us right now very loudly. There's a lot of work to do. So get connected, and I will be connected with you guys. Again, I'm so glad if you've made it this far. Thank you for being here, because this was a long one. I'm really happy to be back in this sort of virtual space with you because it has been far too long. And subscribe, like, share this video if you feel so called. And I so appreciate every single one of you for joining me on this plant journey and playing with plants that are of many indigenous cultures across the globe, that we are all connected to nature. We are all nature. We are nature-made beings. And when we take the time to go back to our traditions, life becomes simpler, life becomes very meaningful and gorgeous, and the pressure slips away. So I encourage you to connect with your spirit guides, your team, connect with the plants that are around you. Even if you're in the city, there are still green spaces and plants to be had. And I wish you all well and lots of green blessings to you now and always. See you soon.